Okay, think about it. We've all got dozens of online accounts, right? And every single one is protected by a password. But are you actually using them the right way? Let's break down how to create a password that isn't just strong, but is also something you can actually remember, and that will truly keep you safe.
So let me ask you something, straight up. Think about the password you use for your main email account or your bank. Is it really strong enough? The answer to that question is probably a lot more important than you think. Because here's the scary part. If you're like most of us, you probably reuse passwords on different websites. Well, a single data breach on some random site you signed up for years ago can set off a huge domino effect. Hackers get that one password, and you bet they're going to try it everywhere else, which could give them the keys to your entire digital kingdom. And that brings us to what I like to call the password problem. See, we've got to stop thinking of passwords as just these annoying things we have to type in. We need to see them for what they really are. They're the digital keys to our lives.
I mean, think about it like this. You would never, ever use the exact same physical key for your front door, your car ignition, and your office, right? Of course not. That'd be a massive security risk. So why on earth do we do it with our digital keys? Every important account you have absolutely deserves its own unique password.
All right, so what actually makes a digital key, a password, strong? It really all comes down to three main ingredients.
First up, and honestly, this is the most important factor by a long shot, is length. When it comes to passwords, longer is always stronger. Every character you add makes it exponentially harder for a computer to guess. Number two, it's gotta be unpredictable. This means no personal stuff. No birthdays, no pet names, and definitely no common words like password or 123456. To an outsider or a hacking program, it needs to look completely random.
And third, like we've already said, but it's so important it's worth repeating, is uniqueness. Every single important account needs its very own password. This way, if one account ever gets compromised, the damage stops right there.
So the big question, how long is long enough? Well, these days the experts recommend a bare minimum of 12 to 16 characters. And you might be thinking, wow, that's a lot. But anything shorter is becoming shockingly easy for modern computers to crack. So the main thing to remember is aim for at least 12, and honestly, the longer, the better. Now, I know what you're thinking. How in the world am I supposed to create and remember some random 16-character password? That is a fantastic question, and it brings us to a really simple but incredibly powerful technique, the passphrase method.
A passphrase is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Instead of trying to remember a jumble of letters and symbols, you just string together a few random, unrelated words. What you get is a password that's super long and, for a human brain, super easy to remember.
Let's look at this side by side. We've been taught to think that something like password is clever and secure, but because it's short, it's like a bridge made of glass. It looks fancy, but it'll shatter under pressure. Now look at the passphrase. River, glass, mango, train. It's like a solid steel bridge. Its strength comes from its length, making it way, way stronger. And believe it or not, much easier for you to remember. This right here is the big aha moment in modern password security.
Okay, so this is great. We're creating long, unique passphrases for everything. But that brings us to the next obvious challenge. How are you supposed to manage and remember all of these new digital keys?
Well, here's one clever trick you can use. It's called the sentence method. First, you come up with a sentence that's easy for you to remember. Like, my first bike was red in 2012. Then, you just take the first letter of each word and maybe tack on the number at the end. All of a sudden, you've got MFBWI 2012, a really strong password that's based on something you can actually recall.
But if you want the real, scalable, gold standard solution, you need a password manager. It's basically a super secure, encrypted vault that creates and saves a unique, crazy strong password for every single website you use. Your only job? Just remember one single, extra strong master password to unlock the whole thing.
Now, whichever way you go, here is a critical rule. Please, whatever you do, avoid writing your passwords down on sticky notes, or in a plain text file on your desktop, or in some random notes app. That's basically the digital version of leaving your house key under the doormat for everyone to find.
Okay. So you've got long, unique passphrases, and you're using a password manager. You are already miles ahead of most people. But for the absolute best protection, there's one more layer we can add. Think of it as your ultimate security safety net. And that layer is two-factor authentication, or 2FA. When you turn this on, even if a thief somehow steals your password,
they still can't get in. Why? Because they need a second piece of information, usually a temporary code that gets sent right to your phone. It is an absolutely essential layer of protection for things like your email and your bank account.
So, to wrap this all up, let's just run through the key takeaways. Your do's. Do use long passphrases. Do use a password manager to keep track of everything. And do turn on 2FA wherever you can. And the don'ts? Don't reuse passwords, don't use simple, guessable ones, and please, don't write them down in an insecure place.
You know, in the end, it really all comes down to this one question. Your entire digital life, all your photos, your private conversations, your finances, it's all locked behind a set of keys. The only real question is, are you going to be the one to hold on to those keys securely, or are you just leaving the door wide open?